Life doesn't always go as planned. There will be days when everything seems to be falling apart. A job you dedicated years to suddenly vanishes. A partner walks away without warning, or the overwhelming pace of life leaves you feeling lost. In moments like these, it's easy to feel powerless, as if you're just a small leaf drifting aimlessly in a relentless current. But what if I told you that even in the most difficult times, there's a way to regain control, stay calm, and even grow stronger from adversity? Imagine this. You lose your job after years of hard work. The initial shock hits, followed by waves of anxiety worrying about finances, the uncertainty of the future. But instead of letting negativity take over, you pause, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, can I control this situation? If the answer is no, then why let it consume your mind? And if the answer is yes, then act instead of despair. This is the mindset of Stoicism, a powerful philosophy that has guided countless individuals for thousands of years, helping them face challenges with resilience and clarity. Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, didn't just theorize about inner peace. He lived by it. His teachings weren't abstract ideas, but practical strategies tested through the trials of real life. In today's video, I'll share with you the core Stoic principles that you can apply right away to build mental resilience, master your emotions, and stop external events from shaking your inner world. These aren't just philosophical concepts, they are time-tested strategies that have been used by Roman emperors, world leaders, and successful entrepreneurs alike. If you're looking for a way to stay steady in a chaotic world, then join me as we explore the power of Stoicism. And if you find this content valuable, consider hitting the subscribe button so you won't miss out on future insights. It's a small but meaningful way to support this channel and help us continue bringing you practical wisdom. Remember, you're not just an ordinary person drifting through life. You have the power to take control of your mind, your emotions, and how you respond to any challenge. So, stand firm, embrace the struggles as part of your growth, and move forward with strength and purpose. 1. Focus on one task at a time. In a world obsessed with multitasking, it's easy to believe that doing several things at once makes us more efficient. We jump between emails, social media notifications, work assignments, and personal responsibilities convinced that we are being productive. But what if this constant juggling is actually slowing us down? Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, warned against this illusion of productivity when he said, "To be everywhere is to be nowhere." His words remind us of a simple, yet often overlooked truth. True progress comes from focusing deeply on one thing at a time. When we divide our attention, we dilute our efforts, increasing the likelihood of mistakes and lowering the quality of our work. Imagine an ancient Roman sculptor carefully chiseling a block of marble into a masterpiece. If he constantly shifted his focus between different sculptures, working on one for a few minutes before moving to another, none of them would ever reach perfection. The same applies to our own lives. Whether we are writing a report, learning a new skill, or even having a conversation, fragmented attention leads to shallow work and a restless mind. Marcus Aurelius, another great Stoic thinker, reinforced this idea when he advised, "Concentrate every minute like a Roman. Do what's in front of you with precise and genuine seriousness." The ability to be fully present in each moment is not just about getting things done, it's about cultivating depth over distraction, mastery over mediocrity. Even Aristotle, centuries before the Stoics, emphasized the importance of developing virtue through intentional action. He believed that excellence is not a single act, but a habit formed through consistent, deliberate effort. By focusing on one task at a time, we not only improve the quality of our work, but also reduce mental clutter, allowing our brains to function at their best. In today's fast-paced world, where notifications and endless to-do lists pull us in 1,000 directions, embracing the Stoic principle of deep focus is more crucial than ever. It's not about working harder, it's about working smarter, training our minds to engage fully with the task at hand. The result? Increased productivity, greater creativity, and a profound sense of mental clarity. So, the next time you feel overwhelmed, take a step back. Choose one task, pour your full attention into it, and watch how much more meaningful and effective your work and your life becomes. 2. Mastering emotions and gaining self-control. It's easy to believe that our emotions are beyond our control, that anger flares up on its own, fear grips us without warning, and sadness washes over us like an unstoppable tide. But what if I told you that the greatest suffering we experience doesn't come from the outside world, but from an undisciplined mind? Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once said, "The greatest misfortunes arise from an ungoverned mind." This statement highlights a truth we often overlook. The chaos we experience internally is largely the result of emotions that we allow to spiral out of control. Stoicism doesn't teach us to suppress our emotions, but to understand and regulate them with wisdom. Let's take a modern scenario. You're stuck in traffic, already running late for an important meeting. A car suddenly cuts you off, forcing you to slam on the brakes. Your first impulse? Anger. Maybe even rage. Your heart pounds, your grip tightens on the steering wheel, and you feel an overwhelming urge to lash out. But what happens if you let that emotion take over? You arrive at your meeting tense, distracted, and frustrated. The traffic jam is over, but it still controls you. Now imagine a different response. Instead of reacting impulsively, you take a deep breath. You remind yourself that the driver's action is beyond your control, but your reaction is entirely within your power. You choose not to waste energy on something that doesn't serve you. You stay calm, enter your meeting with a clear mind, and perform at your best. This is exactly what Epictetus, another Stoic philosopher, meant when he said, "No one is free who is not master of himself." True freedom is not about controlling external events, it's about controlling how we respond to them. And the first step toward that mastery is awareness. When we let emotions dictate our actions without question, we become slaves to them. But when we pause, observe our emotional impulses, and ask ourselves, is this reaction helpful? We regain control. Over time, this practice strengthens our ability to respond deliberately rather than react impulsively. Even Aristotle, though not a Stoic himself, emphasized the importance of balance, what he called the golden mean. Every virtue, he argued, exists between two extremes. Courage, for example, is the balance between recklessness and cowardice. Similarly, emotional control is not about eliminating emotions, but about responding to them with measured reason, rather than excess. Think about how this applies to everyday life. If you never express anger, you might be taken advantage of. But if you always explode in rage, you'll damage relationships and make poor decisions. The goal is not suppression, but moderation, to feel emotions fully without letting them rule us. In our modern world, where stress, frustration, and anxiety seem unavoidable, mastering emotions is a superpower. It doesn't mean we don't feel, it means we choose how to act despite what we feel. So, the next time something triggers an emotional reaction, stop for a moment. Take a breath. Ask yourself, is this emotion serving me or controlling me? What response aligns with my best self? Will this matter in an hour? A day? A year? By consistently practicing emotional control, You'll develop a sense of calm resilience, one that allows you to navigate life's chaos without being pulled under by it. And that, in the end, is the true path to freedom. Three, preparing for adversity, the Stoic art of mental readiness. Life is unpredictable. One day, everything seems to be going well, and the next, you're blindsided by unexpected hardship, a job loss, a health crisis, financial troubles, or a personal betrayal. The truth is, no one is immune to misfortune. But while we can't always control what happens to us, we can control how well we're prepared to face it. Seneca, one of the great Stoic philosophers, offered a powerful insight into this when he said, "Rehearse in your mind the worst-case scenarios. Exile, torture, war, shipwreck. Remember that all these misfortunes are part of the human experience. At first glance, this might sound pessimistic, even extreme. Why dwell on the worst that could happen? Shouldn't we focus on positive thinking instead?" In reality, this technique known as premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils, is not about living in fear, but about mentally preparing for adversity, so that when challenges arise, we don't panic, break down, or feel helpless. Instead, we face difficulties with clarity, resilience, and readiness. The athlete's mindset, training for hardship before it arrives. Think of an elite athlete preparing for a championship match. They don't just train in perfect conditions. They push themselves through exhaustion, endure setbacks, and anticipate the toughest scenarios they might face in the game. They train their minds and bodies to handle failure, pressure, and exhaustion, so that when the real moment arrives, they are not caught off guard. Now apply that same principle to life. If you rehearse difficult situations in your mind, imagining how you would handle a sudden financial crisis, an unexpected breakup, or even a personal failure, you're conditioning yourself not to be ruled by fear and panic. Instead of being emotionally paralyzed, you'll act with wisdom and foresight, having already considered your possible responses. Not fearful, but prepared. Some people mistake this kind of mental preparation for anxiety, believing that thinking about negative outcomes will only bring unnecessary worry. But the difference is key. Anxiety is fear without preparation, dwelling on worst-case scenarios without a plan. Premeditatio malorum is preparation without fear. It allows you to acknowledge potential problems and develop a strategy to handle them. For example, let's say you're worried about losing your job. Instead of letting anxiety consume you, a Stoic approach would be to proactively prepare, strengthen your skills to stay competitive, keep your resume updated, build a financial safety net, network with people in your industry, research alternative career paths in case you need a change. By doing this, you remove uncertainty and replace it with readiness. If the worst happens, you won't be lost. You'll already have a plan in place. Adversity is inevitable. Your response is a choice. Life will test you. That is certain. But whether you crumble under the weight of hardship or rise above it with mental fortitude is entirely within your control. The key to resilience is not hoping for an easy life, but training for a hard one. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't wish for misfortune, but they knew it was foolish to assume life would always be smooth. By preparing for adversity, we transform ourselves from victims of fate into architects of our own endurance. So, take a moment today to ask yourself, what challenges might I face in the future? How can I prepare myself mentally, emotionally, and practically? Am I letting fear control me, or am I using foresight to take control of my life? When you expect hardship and train for it, you don't just survive adversity, you master it. And that is the ultimate power of a prepared mind. 4. Embracing challenges. The path to strength and growth. Most people spend their lives avoiding difficulties, seeking comfort, and hoping that obstacles never come their way. But what if I told you that challenges are not roadblocks, but stepping stones? That every hardship you face has the potential to shape you into a stronger, wiser, and more capable version of yourself? Seneca, one of the greatest Stoic philosophers, once said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind as labor strengthens the body. Just as muscles grow through resistance, our mental and emotional resilience develops when we actively engage with life's challenges instead of running from them." Why avoiding challenges makes us weaker. Imagine someone who never exercises, never lifts anything heavy, and avoids physical strain at all costs. Over time, their muscles weaken, their endurance declines, and even small physical tasks become exhausting. Now apply that same principle to the mind. If we always seek comfort avoiding difficult conversations, shying away from new opportunities, or staying within our safe routines, our ability to handle life's inevitable difficulties atrophies. Many people wish for a smooth life, free of struggle. But what they don't realize is that by avoiding challenges, they are robbing themselves of growth. Without resistance, there is no progress. The very difficulties we fear are the ones that make us stronger. The athlete's mindset, training before the test arrives. Think about an Olympic athlete. They don't wait until the day of competition to start training. Instead, they voluntarily put themselves through grueling workouts, enduring exhaustion, discomfort, and even failure. They know that by challenging themselves before the real test, they will be fully prepared when it matters most. Now, let's apply that to everyday life. Suppose you fear public speaking. You could avoid it, hoping that life never forces you into a situation where you have to stand in front of an audience. But what happens when that day inevitably comes? You'll feel unprepared, overwhelmed, and paralyzed by anxiety. A Stoic approach would be to actively put yourself in challenging situations before they are forced upon you. If public speaking terrifies you, start small. Volunteer to speak in meetings, practice in front of friends, or take an improv class. By seeking out discomfort intentionally, you make it less intimidating. Over time, what once seemed impossible becomes second nature. Challenges expand our limits. Many people think that facing hardship means seeking out suffering, but that's not the case. Stoicism does not advocate for unnecessary pain. It teaches us to be ready for whatever life throws our way. When we take on challenges proactively, we expand our limits and become more adaptable. Think about learning a new skill. At first, it's frustrating. You struggle, make mistakes, and feel inadequate. But if you keep pushing through the discomfort, something amazing happens. You improve. The struggle that once seemed unbearable becomes part of your strength. The shift in mindset, from fear to readiness. The key to personal growth is not waiting for life to challenge us, but seeking out controlled difficulties to prepare for the unpredictable. This mindset shift changes everything. Instead of fearing failure, you see it as a necessary step toward mastery. Instead of dreading obstacles, you view them as opportunities for self-improvement. Instead of avoiding discomfort, you understand that discomfort is the price of strength. Every challenge you embrace today prepares you for the hardships of tomorrow. The more you step outside your comfort zone, the larger your comfort zone becomes. Take the first step today. Ask yourself, what is one challenge I have been avoiding? How can I intentionally put myself in that situation in a controlled way? What small steps can I take today to start strengthening my resilience? Life will test you. That is inevitable. But by training before the test arrives, you ensure that when difficulties come, you won't crumble, you will. 5. Breaking free from the victim mentality and embracing inner stillness. Life is unpredictable, and adversity is inevitable. Some people, when faced with hardship, fall into a mindset of helplessness, believing that the world is against them. Others, however, take the same challenges and use them as stepping stones for growth. The difference? Perspective. Escape the victim mentality. Take back control. Seneca, the great Stoic philosopher, once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." This profound statement reveals a truth we often overlook. Much of our suffering comes not from external events themselves, but from how we interpret and react to them. Consider two individuals who experience job loss. One person might say, "Why does this always happen to me? Life is unfair." The other might say, "This is tough, but what can I learn from this? How can I turn this into an opportunity?" The event is the same, but the mindset is completely different. The first person sees themselves as a victim, powerless against fate. The second sees themselves as an agent of change, taking responsibility for how they move forward. It's easy to blame circumstances, people, or bad luck for our difficulties. But the moment we do that, we surrender control. We tell ourselves that our happiness and success depend on forces outside of us, rather than on our own actions and attitudes. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" a question that invites despair, ask, "What can I learn from this? How can I grow through this experience? What is within my power to change?" The moment we shift our focus from external blame to internal empowerment, we stop being victims and start becoming architects of our own lives. The power of stillness, finding strength in reflection. In today's fast-paced world, silence is often seen as something to be avoided. We fill our days with distractions, social media, endless notifications, background noise, rarely allowing ourselves a moment to just be. But what if the greatest insights, the deepest clarity, and the strongest sense of self come from moments of stillness? Seneca advised, "Withdraw into yourself as much as possible." This does not mean isolation or cutting yourself off from the world, but rather creating space for introspection and self-awareness. Marcus Aurelius, another Stoic thinker, believed that solitude was the key to wisdom. He often retreated into his own thoughts, writing reflections that would later become meditations, one of the greatest works of philosophy ever written. 6. Why does stillness matter? It helps us process emotions. When we give ourselves time to reflect, we gain clarity on what truly matters and what is just noise. It strengthens decision-making. In the rush of life, we often react impulsively. Stillness allows us to respond with intention rather than emotion. It fosters resilience. The more comfortable we become with silence, the less we rely on external validation or distractions to feel whole. Applying these principles to everyday life. Stop feeding the victim mindset. Recognize when you're falling into patterns of blame and shift your focus to what you can control. Seek moments of solitude. Set aside time each day, whether it's 5 minutes in the morning or an hour in the evening, to reflect without distractions. Reframe challenges as opportunities. Every hardship carries a lesson. Instead of resisting, ask, "How is this shaping me into a stronger person?" The Stoics did not promise an easy life, but they offered a philosophy that makes life's difficulties meaningful rather than unbearable. By breaking free from the victim mentality and embracing the power of stillness, we don't just survive life's hardships, we master them.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.